Hey, welcome back to another Bill Sky, the encryption security guy, and this is video number 2 of how to set up a secure computer, possibly for travel, possibly for common sense, to secure your data and not to allow anybody else to touch it. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to go ahead and we're going to install our 64-bit secure operating system called Ubuntu using VMware as a guest operating system on your laptop. Now, if you haven't seen my first video in this series, please go take a look at it. It gives you an introduction to what we're doing. It gives you an overview of why we're doing this and what software we need and how to install it. If you look at the chapters of this video, also you're going to see that there's a Windows version. If you notice, maybe not, you don't realize it, but I'm actually on a Mac right here, an Apple Mac, and this operating system or the product called VMware that we're using here is much the same as it is on Windows. However, there are some differences in the user interface, and I show you how to get started with those differences in another chapter of this particular video. So if you want to go ahead and jump over to the Windows version and then come back to this, or the Windows chapter and then come back to this to see how we actually do the Ubuntu install, that's great. If you don't, if you want to see how it's done on Mac as well, then just stick around. My browser, and I have to download the Ubuntu disk, the Ubuntu ISO file that's going to allow me to do the installation. Now this isn't a small download, but it's not particularly huge either. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in Ubuntu Ubuntu download. Makes it very easy to find it. And you'll see on the now this is a Brave search, Brave browser, but on Google I think it does the same thing. Download Ubuntu Desktop Ubuntu. Now I'm going to click on that, and there's a couple of things that we need to look at here. What kind of a computer do you have? If you have a normal Windows computer, it is more than likely an Intel or AMD 64-bit architecture. Go ahead and just click on that. And you can see it's 5.9 gigabytes, so it'll take a little while for it to download, but that's exactly what you need. Now, if you are on a Mac M1, M2, whatever the M version is, laptop or even main desktop, you're going to want to download the ARM 64-bit architecture ISO image and click download on that. Again, it's different, and it's a different version too. It's 2504. So I'm not testing that because normally, well, I guess maybe you will take your MacBook with you on a trip, but it's really a good idea to stay secure when traveling to use a different laptop than you normally use. That may not be possible, but there's things you have to think about when you're thinking about a secure environment. So in this case, you're going to want to download this one. Now you can download the 25.04 Ubuntu for Intel or AMD, but that's brand new. It's almost like testing. It's like beta testing. And I don't like messing around with the latest version because it can have problems. So I always download the most recent. And it goes ahead and asks you if you want to sign up for a newsletter or whatever. If you just wait, it'll say where do you want to download it. I'm going to download it to downloads and click save. Okay, now once that's finished downloading, and it has to download completely, we're going to go ahead and create a virtual machine. This time we're going to create it on a Mac, and as I said, later on there's a short little part of this video where we do it on Windows on a different computer. So first thing I'm going to do on the Mac is I'm going to say File. Actually, I have to make sure I'm on Visual Studio. I'm sorry, VMware. And I'm going to click on File, New. And I'm going to say Create a Custom Virtual Machine. Now this is VMware Fusion on a Mac. It's a little bit of difference of a user interface than VM Workstation Pro on Windows or Linux. I'm just going to go ahead and say Create a Custom Virtual Machine, say Continue. I'm going to select Linux, and then I'm going to scroll down to Ubuntu 64-bit. Click Continue. I actually like UEFI, but you can just keep the legacy BIOS, no problem. Click Continue. Create a new virtual machine. Click Continue. And then it shows you what it's got. It's got a memory of 4 gigabytes. And if you've got a computer that has 8 gigabytes or more, that's perfectly fine. That means that this virtual machine is going to use 4 gigabytes. And for Linux, it's perfectly fine to have a virtual machine just use as little as 2 gigabytes. But 4 gigabytes is good if you've got it. 2 CPU cores is also great. If you've got a much slower computer, you might want it to, or older computer, you might want to take it down to 1 CPU core. But that's okay. Now I'm going to click on Finish, and it's going to ask me where do I want to store this virtual machine. Well, you might want to store it in your documents. I'm going to store it on my desktop just so you can see it. And I'm going to give it a name. Instead of Ubuntu 64-bit, I'm going to say Ubuntu 24.04, and I could say ENC for encrypt. However, that might be a problem. If you say ENC and somebody sees that, who's looking at your computer, they might say, oh, that's something encrypted, because they might get ENC. Not that they're that smart. I guarantee you they're not. But you might want to leave that out just so you know. You might want to say 24.04e maybe. That's deniable, that's what that means. And that's what I'm going to put. I'm going to put an E, and I'm going to click Save. Now, the first thing it does is it says you're running this, and I wish I hadn't done that. There's a thing there that you can click on to say, don't start this virtual machine. And I wish I had never done that. I wish I had clicked that. And it's going to give this strange, it's trying to boot off the internet or off your network. And you can see our virtual machine right here on our desktop. I'm just going to go ahead and press the X. And it says it's saving it. But you really don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to virtual machine, and I'm going to say shut down. And say shut down. Okay, great. So now the reason it was showing those strange characters was because we hadn't set everything up on it yet. And again, I wish it wouldn't automatically start it. But I'm going to click on this little tool, and it brings this up. I'm going to go over here to CD DVD, and I'm going to select choose a disk or disk image. Now this is the disk or disk image that we downloaded from Ubuntu. It's that ISO disk, and it's starting up my hard drives and my SSDs, and it takes me directly to my downloads, and I happen to put it in my ISO images folder, and there it is right there, 24.04.2. I'm going to click open, and then I'm going to click show all. Make sure connect DVD drive is selected, and I'm going to click show all. And then we got that funny window that says something about channel. I'm going to click on advanced, and I'm going to say disable side channel mitigation. And I'm not really sure why it doesn't default to that, because it warns you don't want to have that turned on. So I'm going to disable it. Yeah, kind of weird. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and press play, and now it will boot up. It says, do you want to, now what's happening? It's booting off of that ISO file that you downloaded. So this is Ubuntu. And I'm going to go ahead and click try or install Ubuntu. Now, something else that you could have done during the setup when we were in this little tool, and I can bring it up again, is under display, you could turn off accelerate 3D graphics. Now, why would you want to turn that off? Just in case there's a problem during install, because you've got some advanced thing going on. So I'm just going to go ahead. I can't change it now that it's booted up, but I'm going to go ahead and take a chance and hope that it works. Now, what we're going to do from now on is exactly what you would do on Windows, exactly what you would do on Linux, if that's your main computer's operating system. So there's no difference. There's absolutely no difference between those. It's the exact same install. And we're going to go ahead and let Ubuntu boot. Now, the reason why it's taking so long is it's booting off of a CD-ROM or a DVD image, and that takes a few minutes. All right, so it looks like it's coming up. It doesn't look like we're going to have any graphics problems. Alrighty, so now it says preparing Ubuntu, and that means it's getting all the files together off of the ISO disk into memory. It's getting everything working. So just be patient. Alright, so it asks you what language you want to install for. I'm in the United States. We're language bigots, so I'm going to go ahead and leave English as the default. Click Next. It tells me about accessibility, which is great features. Next. It says what kind of keyboard. I'm from the United States. It's an English keyboard, so I'm just going to click Next. It says what kind of internet connection you have. Use the wired connection. Now, what does that mean? I don't have a wire actually connected to my Ubuntu virtual guest, I may not even have a wire connected to my computer. It might be Wi-Fi. So what is all this about wired? Well, VMware actually tells the operating system that you're installing that there's an actual physical network card there. Weird, right? So it virtualizes it has a virtual network card that is a wired card. So just go ahead and select use wired connection and click next. It asks you if you want to update the install program, and I really recommend that you do that. So go ahead and click update now. And what it's going to do is it's going to download the most recent update program onto your Ubuntu. And then you click on close installer, and it should start up again automatically. If it doesn't start up again, go ahead and just double click this install Ubuntu. Just double click on it with your mouse, and the installation will begin again a lot faster than before. English, fine. English, in my case, use wired, great. Okay, so now it asks me, do you want to do an interactive installation or automated? For your own sake, let's go to interactive installation. Click next. I'm going to select with an extended selection. I'm personally going to install these third-party software things for like looking at videos and YouTube and stuff like that on your guest operating system. And also download install support. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to say next. Now, it asks you, what do you want to do here? Remember when we set this virtual machine up, you selected a 20 gigabyte hard disk, which isn't a physical hard disk. It's actually a virtual hard disk, which is stored as a file. I'm going to click on Advanced Features under Erase, and I'm going to select Use LVM and Encryption. This is our second level, or maybe our first level of protection and encryption on our operating system. If you just say use LVM, then if somebody gets a hold of these files that make up your virtual operating system, they're going to be able to look at it. They're going to be able to look at the data. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to use LVM and encryption and click OK. And then I'm going to click next. And now it's going to ask me to type in my passphrase for that encryption. Now, there's a lot of passwords involved here. Please pick a password that you can remember, but nobody else can figure out. So like for instance, I'm going to click on show here. And by the way, during this video, you might see lines and stuff being drawn on the screen on our virtual machine. And that's because we have 3D, or we have acceleration, we have graphics acceleration enabled in the settings. So you might want to make sure you turn that off. Now you can always restart this, install, like let's say if you wanted to do that, I can go up here to virtual machine and say restart, and nothing will have hurt. I mean, you have to go through the process again, but nothing will be damaged. So you can do that if you'd like. So I'm going to pick a password that I know, and I don't know. I was born on Sharp Street, and I'm going to put a % there, and I was born on 7645 Sharp, and I'm going to put an exclamation mark. And I was born in St. Michael's. And I'm going to put an ampersand. Now, really, the only thing you have to remember here is the street you were born on, the number, and the hospital you were born. But the things that you all have to remember are these characters right here. %, exclamation, and ampersand. So it's really, and now don't do this exactly, but do something you're going to remember, but also something that is kind of difficult, because somebody might say, okay, I'm going to try to get into the system, and they're going to look at all your personal information. Ah, they were born on Sharp Avenue, so maybe that's in there. They're not going to know what part of the password it's there. They're going to say, they were born on 7645, but they're not going to know where it is, and they're also not going to know these special characters that is separating the words. So these are real words, but they're also separated by special characters. And then you might want to put something like, I was born in 1959 at the end. So numbers as well. And you might want to finish that off with an ampersand. So you definitely want to pick a password that is something that you can remember. And you might also want to use that password on in many places. That I'll call it my master password, and I use it for things like when I'm encrypting data or when I'm securing something. And it's a password that I don't use all the time, but it's the same password. Now, I wouldn't do this for login passwords like for Google or for Substack or Blue Sky or whatever, Facebook. But it's for my really important stuff because it's really, really long. So that is the passphrase for your encryption. Now, while you're getting used to using that passphrase, it might not be a bad idea to save it somewhere. Just while you're getting used to it. So I'm going to go ahead and type this over here in my little notepad, sharp percent 7645 exclamation Michael's. Oh, St. Michael's. $19.59. And then there's an at sign there. All right, good. All right, sorry for that. I just wanted to make sure that I have it because that really isn't my data. That's not really information about me, so it's not going to be easy for me to remember. But you want to pick a good password. Okay, so now you need to put in your name. So I'm going to put a Bill Sky. Computer's name doesn't matter. I'm going to make my username. It can be Bill-Sky. That's fine. I don't like using special characters, so I'm just going to change that to Bill Sky. Now I'm going to pick another password here. And this password doesn't need to be as special as the encryption password, but it does need to be secure. And require my password at login. Now this is level 2 of your encryption security. This is level 2 of a 3 or 4 level security solution that we're doing here to make sure nobody can get into your system. I'm going to click next. There we go. I happen to be on the West Coast, so I'm going to say next, and I'm going to say install. And what's going to happen now is Ubuntu is going to install, and you're going to have to, just got to be a little bit patient here, and when it's done installing, we'll return and finish this video off. Okay, the installation is complete, and now what we're going to do is we're going to click on Continue Testing, because there's one thing I left out when setting up this virtual machine. So I'm going to click Continue Testing, and then up on the top right, I'm going to click the little power button, hit the power button again, and click Power Off, and then click Power Off again. And what that's going to do is it's going to shut down this virtual operating system. One thing I did not talk about in this video was setting up encryption on this. Well, I did, where we're encrypting the hard disk within the Ubuntu operating system, and then we have the user ID and password to log in, but we can also encrypt the entire virtual machine, which is really what you want to do. Now, Ubuntu will say, please remove the installation media, press enter. So I'm just going to press enter there, and now we've got our virtual machine that's just sitting there, waiting for us to do something. Now I'm going to click on this little tool again, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to display and I'm going to turn off accelerate 3D graphics. That's the first thing I'm going to do. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on encryption. Now for Windows it's a bit different. I'll show that in the video for that, but I'm going to click on this little encryption and I'm going to say all the files. Let me show you that again. I click all the files, and now I'm going to give it a password. Now you want to give it a password that makes sense, but is not easily found. So I'm going to use the same password that I used for my disk encryption. And what I'm going to do is, so I'm just going to paste that in there. And then I'm going to use 2 more characters at the end. So I paste it and 2 more characters at the end. I'm going to turn off remember password. I'm going to click OK. And then it's going to go ahead and encrypt it. Now, if I had done this at the beginning, it wouldn't take as long to encrypt it. It wouldn't take long at all to encrypt it. But because I forgot to do that when I set up the virtual machine, it's going to take a couple of seconds. So let that go ahead and finish. And then what we're going to do is we're going to test it to make sure it still comes up okay. And then that will be that. All right, good. So it's encrypted. You will not be able to use it without entering the password. Okay, we've got 3 levels of encryption now. 3 levels. And there's even a 4th level that we're going to have. So I'm going to say show all. And I don't believe there's anything left I need to do. So now I'm going to go ahead and, oh, yep, one other thing. I go into settings. I'm going to go to the CD, and I'm going to disconnect it because we're not going to use it anymore. I can drop down and say, you know, whatever, but I'm going to just disconnect it. And I'm going to go ahead and press play to start the virtual machine. Now, the reason it's not asking me for the password yet is because I haven't closed the window and opened it up again. I just set up the encryption. Okay, so now it's asking me to unlock the disk. And this is the very first encryption password we used for the Ubuntu disk. Up. And it gave me access to the hard drive, no problem. Now your display might look a little bit different depending upon if you've got accelerated graphics or whatever enabled. But for right now, this is what it looks like during boot up. And you can see those 4 dots changing colors, and that means that it's booting up. All right, there we go. And there's my user ID, so I'm going to click on it. Put in my password, and holy smokes, we've got 3 levels of encryption on this operating system. And it asked me, you know, hello, you want to learn about it, say next. I'm going to just skip the Ubuntu Pro. Now, Ubuntu Pro is a way that you can donate some money to Ubuntu, and then what they'll do is they'll give you better service, they'll give you better update or more updates, more earlier updates, but I'm going to skip that for right now. And I'm going to say no. I don't want to share system data. Very, very important for secure system. Next and finish. And there's your Ubuntu operating system. And it's running in this case, it's running within a Mac OS computer. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but when you move your mouse around, you can't get out of that window. How do you get out of the window to be able to get to your main operating system? Well, on a Mac, you press Control Command, and now I can get out. And now I can do things with on the main operating system, and I just click inside and I get back. Now, that isn't necessarily always going to be the case. We'll talk more about installing software, but there's a lot of stuff in here. I can go into Firefox, which is a great browser, and I can go and search the internet. I can do whatever I want. I can log into my social media accounts. I can go over here to Thunderbird Mail. I can set up my mail, which I'll be doing a video on. I've got my music over here. All this stuff is now secure in a triple encrypted operating system. Now, what if I'm done with it? I'm ready to enter the country that I'm a little bit worried about them looking at my computer. How do I get away? How do I get rid of this? How do I do that? For instance, like you're coming back to the U.S. and you're worried. Now, here's the thing. In no way am I suggesting that you do anything illegal or you use this process to do anything illegal. However, I am doing this so you understand your rights under the Constitution of the United States. You're allowed to have all this information, and it's nobody else's business but yours. And I'm just enabling you with the tools necessary to have that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down my operating system. And I'm going to show you just how easy it is to get rid of this virtual machine. I'm going to close the window. And you can see over here we've got my trash can on the far right. If I want to delete this, all I have to do is right-click, move to trash. Now, it's not completely gone. I'm going to go over here to my to my trash can, right click on that, and I'm going to click empty trash. And that's it. Now in Windows and Linux, you can just press the delete key. But you still have to remember to delete or to empty your trash can. So I'm going to open up the trash can because I don't want to delete that. And I move it back out of the trash can. Now I'm going to end VMware Fusion. So you can do the same thing with VMware Workstation. I'm going to restart it. And I'm going to double click on that. Now I closed VMware. I double clicked on it. It's now asking me for the password. Now notice this is a different type of a password prompt. But it's now asking me for the password. And this was the password for the disk encryption. And remember, I added 2 characters at the end. Oh, the password was wrong. Pretty important to remember to pick a password you're going to remember. So let's see if I can. And there we go. And then it starts it up. So that's our first level of encryption. Our second level of encryption is when we go ahead and enter the encryption password for our disk as we did earlier. Our third level is logging into the user ID. There's our second level. And if any time you want to end this, all you have to do is just come up here to virtual machine and shut down, and it'll close it down. Okay, so what's coming up next is the Windows version of this. I'm not going to go through the entire operating system installation, but I'm going to go through how to set up your Windows VMware guest, just like we did for the Mac at the very beginning, and then we'll finish off. Okay, here we are on my Windows computer, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to set up, or we're going to start the setup of a secure Ubuntu. Now, we're going to do this a little bit differently than on Mac because it's VMware Workstation Pro, which is Linux and Windows program. No problem. But we're going to do things, because I made a mistake during the Mac version, and we're going to fix that during this. So, okay, so I started up VMware Workstation. I'm going to go up to here to File and say New Virtual Machine. I'm going to click on Custom and say Next. Just leave everything default next. And I'm going to say I will install the operating system later because there are some things we have to do to configure it correctly. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to select Linux, Ubuntu 64-bit. You can pick any kind you want, but you really want to pick Ubuntu 64-bit. I'm going to click Next, and then I'm going to give it a name. Now, one thing we did on the Mac version is we put the version of Ubuntu, but you could say encrypted. Ooh, dangerous, because they know it's encrypted, right? Or you can put ENC. Ugh, I don't like that either. What I do like is putting a little E at the end of the version number, and that will remind me that it's encrypted. And then you can just leave the location default. I'm going to say Next. 2 processors is great. 4096 is great. Now again, if you've got a very, very old machine, 2 processors might not be a good idea. You might want to take this down to 1. And the memory, Ubuntu runs fine on 2048, and I can go ahead and type that in there if I want. It runs great on 2048, but I like 4096 because I do some more advanced things like videos and things like that. So, and that all depends upon the amount of memory you have. So if you have a computer running Windows that has only 8 gigabytes of memory, 4096 might be tough for Windows. So you might want to take that down to 2048 or 1024 might even be better. But 4096 is pretty good. Next, I'm going to go ahead and just select Use NAT. That's fine. Next. LSI Logic, fine. That's for the hard drive that it's going to be creating. Use the recommended. It doesn't matter. Create a new virtual disk. And then you want to give it a size. Now, this also depends upon the amount of disk space that you have free on your computer. 20 gigabytes is fine. If you're going to be installing a bunch of stuff like a bunch of music and all that, you might want to take that up to 40 or even 60. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to allocate it right away. It's only going to allocate that disk space when it needs it. And then I'm going to click Store Virtual Disk as a single file. I'm going to say Next. That's fine. That's the name of my configuration for that operating system. Okay, now I'm going to say Finish. And there it is. All right, so now there's a couple of things that we have to do, just like we had to do on Mac. I'm going to click on the Edit Virtual Machine Settings. I'm going to go down here to CD, and I'm going to say Use ISO Image. Now this is the file that we downloaded from Ubuntu. Again, if you didn't watch the Mac version of this, I'm going to do Ubuntu download Ubuntu desktop. And I'm going to go ahead under Intel and AMD 64-bit architecture. I'm going to click the download link. And that download button is going to take me to a window asking me if I would like to agree to marketing materials and things like that. And then it's going to download it to my downloads folder. Okay? I've already got it downloaded, so I don't have to worry about that. So now I need to use that ISO disk. So I'm going to go ahead and click Browse. I'm going to go to my downloads, and there it is right there. That's the one I just downloaded. I'm going to say Open. All right, now under Display, I'm going to turn off Accelerate 3D Graphics. Over here under Options, I'm going to go to Advanced, and I'm going to disable side channel mitigations. I'm not sure why they don't default to that, but that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Access Control. Now this is the thing I forgot to do on the Mac version of this video, but I'm going to do it right here. Now, you don't have to do it now, but it'll be more efficient. You won't have to do it later. And I'm going to click Encrypt, and I'm going to give it a password. And before I do that, I'm going to say all files. I want to encrypt all files. And your password, you need to create a password that is that you'll be able to figure out, but nobody else will be able to figure out. And unfortunately, you can't really view the password, but I'd kind of like to give you an idea of what a password like that might look like. So what might a password like that look like? I don't know. I was born in St. Michael's Hospital. I'm going to separate that with an exclamation point. I was born in June. Do that with an ampersand. I was born in 1959. Do that with a hashtag. I was born in St. Louis, in Missouri. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but these special characters I'm putting in, they start at the top left of my keyboard's numbers. So it's the exclamation, ampersand, or not, @ sign, hashtag, $, and then %. So little things like that you'll remember. And just remember that, you have all the answers to all this. Also, make it consistent. If you've got an abbreviation, end it with a period. Start every word with a capital letter. And you can figure it out because you know that information. Now, other people may not, because they may not realize that you're doing a period. They might not realize you're using these special characters. So you want to have some type of a password that you can figure out. And you might want to add, I don't know, at the end, something like that. Very difficult password to figure out, even if they have all of your information. And I'm going to put that password in there. And one other thing you want to do, turn off Remember the Password. Because if you leave that turned on, then anybody that gets your computer can get to the system. And then click Encrypt. And that's how quickly it happened. And then any time you can click on Remove Encryption. All right, I think we're in good shape here. Let's make sure we've got our CD, we've got our display, Accelerate 3D Graphics are turned off. All right, I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click Power on this virtual machine. And I'm going to say I finished installing just to get that out of there. It's not going to do anything. And try or install. I'm going to click inside of this window. So what I did was I clicked inside the window, and now I can use the keyboard. So I'm going to press Enter. Now, if you click inside the window and your mouse is no longer available anywhere, on Windows and Linux, just hold down the Control and Alt keys at the same time, and your mouse shows back up. That's a little thing you have to remember. And Ubuntu is now booting up. Now, everything that we did on the Mac version of this video applies at this point on the Windows version. The install for Ubuntu is exactly the same. So if you jumped to this part of the video, to see how to do this in Windows, great. I think it's wonderful. Jump back to the chapter that says the actual Ubuntu install, and then just follow those same rules or follow those same procedures. Except on the Mac version, I show you how to encrypt the virtual guest after it was installed because I forgot to do it before it was installed. So for you Windows users, you Linux users that want to install it, that's how you get started. Take a look at the rest of the Mac version, the Apple Mac version, to see exactly how to install Ubuntu, and we'll see at the conclusion. Okay, so now you have installed VMware, you've installed Ubuntu, hyper secure, 3-4 levels of encryption, unbelievable, and we're not done yet. We're going to make this so secure nobody will be able to get into it. And we did it on both Mac and Windows. If you're a Linux user, if you're using Linux as your main laptop's operating system, which if you're an advanced user, I would really, even if you're a beginning user, I would really recommend you do that. Why? Because Linux gives old computers new life. So perfect example, but if you're using Windows or Linux as your main operating system, we did that in the second chapter. In the first chapter, we did it on Mac, and now you're all ready. So the next video, we're going to actually talk about what to install on your Ubuntu, and then we're also going to do additional videos on how to set up your email, how to take a look at your, how to create a virtual private network on your Linux, maybe not create one, but use one, and the benefits of that. And then what happens when you actually land back in the United States and you want to get rid of all this stuff. You just want to have plausible deniability. You're not doing anything illegal, but you're protecting your rights to have the data that you want without it being pried into. And I hope to see you very soon at our next video.